Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Kimberly Flores, and I'm a case manager with ACRC Global. We are a full-service egg donor and surrogacy agency helping our intended parents grow their families of their dreams. Today, I am very excited to introduce our co-host, Will Halm, founder of IRLG, International Reproductive Law Group. Hi, Will. How are you?
Good. Hi, Kim.
Hi, good, good. Thank you so much for joining us today. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Let me see. Let me start on a personal level that I have three adult children through surrogacy myself. So I've been through the journey of surrogacy and egg donation back in the day when there were no laws on surrogacy. So I helped create a lot of the laws across the country. And I can say that I'm really, really proud of the achievements that this whole field has witnessed over the last 20 years.
That's really
I've been practicing law. I started as a corporate lawyer, but switched to assisted reproduction law when we had our first kid through surrogacy, and there were no laws. Pretty much did a contract on a napkin, and from then really intrigued with what could be done in this field. And since I started practicing, I've devoted my career to assisted reproduction law.
very interesting how things have evolved from contracts in a napkin to full contracts that are, 40, 50 pages long to make sure that we have all the little details hammered out, right? That's great. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and firstly just thank you so much for that introduction. I did want to let everyone know we are going to have a little raffle at the end of our webinar here today. So you can go ahead and click on or excuse me, scan the QR code that we have on the screen here. Every person who registers using the QR code will receive a $500 credit to use with us at ACRC Services. We will pick one winner at the end of this webinar that will receive an additional $1,000 credit to use for services with us at ACRC. So it will be on our slides throughout, but if you want to go ahead and get that scanned using your phone, it'll lead you directly to our registration services. And then as well, if anyone is interested in a free consultation with us here at ACRC, you can follow this QR code directly to our website, and one of our assisted personnel can go ahead and get you set up with a free consultation. We do offer in-person consultations if it's something you're interested in with visiting us at the office. Okay, well, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you.
Great, thank you. So the name of our firm, International Reproductive Law Group. Again, IRLG was formed to really devote and dedicate a team of lawyers, and we now have become the largest assisted reproduction technology law firm probably in the world, just dedicated to assisted reproduction matters. So all we do are surrogacy contracts, egg donation agreements, sperm donation agreements, parental establishment documents, powers of attorney, and legal guardianship documents, which all center around the surrogacy process. So if anything should happen to the intended parent during the process, then we have legal guardianship documents in place. So all of these documents and our whole practice is really focused on the surrogacy and assisted reproduction process. Maybe the next slide can help. Can you change the slides, or I can tell you a little bit more about the firm? I think it's on the next slide.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, so this is basically what I said was our mission really is to provide a level of service. And what we found was if you're in a law firm that does sort of multi-subject matter matters, litigation and other things, then it really sort of takes your time away from helping clients who are going through the surrogacy journey. And people don't realize that the surrogacy journey is really time sensitive. I mean, there are medical deadlines, there's transfers. Kimberly, you know all of this, right? There's a court date which you have to get parental judgments issued before the baby's born. So all of this is time sensitive. It takes the dedication and really focus of a staff of attorneys to really make sure that everything's done in a timely fashion, because you don't want a baby born without the proper documents already being filed in court.
course, very important that we've seen specifically with, ensuring that both parties are taken care of. Intended parents want to take their baby home safely without any additional sort of, headaches, and surrogates, also don't want to take home a baby that they were charged with bringing into this world, but not necessarily taking back to their home to take care of. So very important.
Absolutely. And all of our documents are obviously for the benefit of both the intended parents and the surrogates and the donors. Because again, the surrogates and donors don't want to have any legal obligations towards the child. And we want to make sure that the intended parents have thought about who will step in as legal guardian in case something should happen during the pregnancy, who makes medical decisions, because we don't want those decisions to have to fall on the surrogate. So again, all of our documents are with the objective of protecting all the parties to the process.
And I would think as well for international intended parents, correct, something that would also be very important to them, for example, if they're not able to make it to the States, right? Signing that power of attorney and making sure all of that is in place, have someone here in the States that's available for the time that their baby is born.
Absolutely. So I would say in my career, a good third of the thousands of cases we've helped have been international. And, because health risks are what they are, or twins coming out early, all of that, some of our intended parents internationally have not been able to catch a plane and arrive in time for the delivery. So we've made sure all the arrangements at the hospital are done, all the documentation, that there's a legal guardian to be able to pick up the child, and of course deliver the child to the parents when the parents actually arrive. So we faced all of those situations. All have been successfully now. They're all home with their children. So that's the good news.
Yeah, of course. We, as you're aware, we work with a fair amount of international intended parents. So that is a question that we get from the surrogacy side more specifically. I had my match meeting and I see that, they're not necessarily located in the United States. How does that work when I'm, having this baby? Do I have to take the baby home, or, so it's great to be able to refer our surrogates to, someone like your agency that would be able to explain all of that and get everything necessary in place.
Right. And we've had, especially during COVID as well, where international parents could not get into the United States quickly, or they had to go to another country. So we've faced situations where we've had legal guardians pick up the hospital child. Some of our lawyers have actually picked up the child and delivered it to a caretaker. We've actually had one of our lawyers fly to Europe to deliver a child where the intended parent could not come to the United States. So we've sort of done it all and seen it all. And again, all successful outcomes, which is great, but you really need someone who understands international travel and visas and all the immigration issues that go along with even a quick visit. So all of those things are really important. And if you're going to retain an agency and a law firm in this field, you really want to make sure that they have the requisite amount of experience, not just in their little hometown or home state, but definitely, abroad if your clients are international.
Thank you for that, Will. Okay, go ahead and get.
So very large practice, and it's not that we're large. It's really our philosophy of how we approach legal services that's, I think, unique. So we have attorneys work on every single case. So most firms that are large in this field will have legal assistants or administrative assistants draft documents and contracts. We have an attorney assigned to each case, and that attorney follows the journey from beginning to end. So we're talking about from the time a client's matched with the surrogate to the time that a birth certificate is issued, if a passport is necessary for international travel. That same attorney will draft all the documents and will oversee the entire process. And the reason that's important is, the complexities now where if the intended parents are abroad, a surrogate could be in one state, the clinic can be in another state, the donor could be in another state. You know how many jurisdictions are involved. So it's really important to understand the complexities of each of the jurisdictions, what can happen, and to make sure that that's all well coordinated by one attorney who understands the case. Because we have cases The most complex maybe will be where there's an international couple, both each is a citizen of a different country, and they can also dual citizenship. So there could be four countries involved with two people, right? And then they're coming here and their clinics in one state and their surrogates in another. So we've dealt with all of these complexities, but it's really, really important to have one attorney oversee the entire process and not break it up as some attorneys do between legal assistants and the attorney.
Right. That continuity of care, I mean, I was just going to note, is something that we see provides so much comfort for, intended parent or surrogate or whoever the case may be for. It helps create a little bit more sense of security, just knowing that they only have that one person that's going to take care of them from the start through the finish.
Yeah.
Get you over to your next slide.
Okay, so I spoke definitely about our approach of having attorneys draft all the documents, oversee all the cases. Another thing that makes our firm unique is that we're licensed in over 40 states. I mean, directly, one of our attorneys is licensed in over 40. So one of us is licensed. So the reason that's important is because it's very, very important to understand the laws of the state where your child will be born, because that is the laws that will govern the contract. And every state has different surrogacy laws. 20 something odd states have actual statutes. So you have to follow the letter of the law for each statute in each of those states where your child will be born. The other states have case law, judicial law. And in those states, we want to make sure that, again, we're following the legal precedent of that state. Some states, for example, require the intended parents, the surrogate, to be a resident of that state, or the intended parents to be a resident of that state. Some states require marriage. Some states, the compensation restrictions are in place where the contract has to make sure how they characterize compensation. All of those things are really important, because if this contract should ever be litigated or there's a dispute, you want to make sure that that surrogate is compliant with the laws of the state where your child is born. So that's something that's really important. Another thing that makes, I think, our firm unique is our VIP services. So I alluded to the fact that, we've traveled with children, we've picked them up at hospitals, we've provided passports to numerous countries, U.S. passports, but gotten children to abroad to their home countries with their parents successfully. Apostilles, all of that, we can have done, hundreds of those cases. So again, we've not had an unsuccessful international case or domestic case in over 20 years.
Great to
Yeah, one more, maybe I keep using the word unique, so maybe I can't use the word unique every single time. But another thing that really does make us different, I think, is significant, is the number of languages that we speak. We also have translators that we have used over 10 plus years, who are very fluent in the assisted reproduction technology language and terminology. So we have translated our contracts in various languages. So in addition to the languages you see there, Mandarin, Cantonese, Korean, Japanese, we've translated all of our contracts and had very, very qualified translators explain the contracts to our clients abroad.
I know you're trying not to use the word unique, but it coming from dealing with many agencies, I would say that is unique, in different law groups. We sometimes that it's hard to find people that do offer the translation services. They say, yeah, we have no problem meeting with your client. However, we don't have someone that speaks their language. So that'll need to be something arranged outside. So having everything, I believe, built into the law group is really helpful, just again, for that continuity of being able to speak to one person who understands everything. You're not translating again through 3-4 different parties.
And it's also really important for the firm and an agency to use a qualified translators who are familiar with the terminology, because assisted reproduction field has some very unique terms. And when they're translated, it can really confuse the client and the surrogate if she's, English is not her first language, to be reading about or hear a term that has nothing really to do with what they think it should be about. So Very important.
Definitely not a not conversational translation that's appropriate for this. Needs to be a trained translator.
Absolutely.
Oh, there we go.
So yeah, working with reputable agencies like ACRC that does have international clients. So one thing that's really important is that the law firm understand the policies and procedures of the agency because a firm like ACRC has policies in place that they've educated their surrogates about. And so the contract needs to reflect what the surrogate is their expectations are and what the intended parents' expectations are through the ACRC process. So ACRC has educated their surrogates, and informed their intended parents what their policies and procedures are, and compensation wise and everything else needs to be reflected in the contract. We've seen many cases where intended parents have chosen a law firm that's not familiar with the agency, and the contract, when we're reviewing the contract for the surrogate, for example, it's like, well, this is not exactly this is not the agency's policies. And they've sort of lifted it from like some other agency's compensation scheme. So it's really important to get lawyers who are familiar with the agency's policies and procedures, both for the protection of the intended parents and the surrogate. It the process of surrogacy definitely takes a village, right? Medical and legal and the agency. And the lawyers and the agency do need to collaborate throughout the process because, Kimberly, as you know, legal is a part of every step, right? So after a match, and before there's an embryo transfer, there has to be a lengthy contract drafted up. The parties need to review it. The surrogate needs to have a qualified reviewing attorney to explain all of the terms to her so they understand the intended parent's the same. And the case manager at ACRC, and I know they're all top notch, really need to make sure that the clients are satisfied with the legal process and they feel they've gotten good representation. I think that's very, very important that they feel that after the review of the contract that they really understand it. So I think that's important. Two is the next sort of time factor is, and of course, the doctor will not undergo an embryo transfer without legal clearance. So there has to be a contract in place, signed and notarized. The second important step is once the surrogate's pregnant, of course, the time is ticking on getting a parentage judgment. And it's very, very important that those pleadings be started 2/3 of the way during a pregnancy. So there's some months you want to file at the last minute. So you have to prepare the pleadings. They have to be circulated for review, for signature. All of that takes coordination with the agency because the agency is the one who's in primary contact with both the intended parents and the surrogate. So therefore, weekly, periodic updates between the law firm and the agency is paramount. So I know ACRC case managers are terrific about responding to requests and questions, and I think we are too. So.
Oh, yes, of course. I would say that our lines of communication are very open and, we don't hesitate, I think, either on either side of the channel. If there's a question, it's better to be asked and just make sure that everyone is on the same page, like you said, to ensure that the timeline is being followed appropriately and everything is being filed in the way that we need to so that everyone is taken care of in the end.
And then I think the most important thing for intended parents and surrogates, if you're listening about just the timing of this and during the pregnancy, is that if you don't hear anything, it doesn't mean nothing is going on. So, for example, when we say, we send out the court pleadings for review and signature, and you send them back and you haven't heard anything, it doesn't mean that they haven't been filed because a lot of courts will not issue judgments until, closer to the birth, or some states are post-birth. But don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask your case manager, or you can call up, you'll be in contact with, there'll be a lawyer assigned to your case in our firm. And you can always email them and just say, what's up? Did they get filed or whatever? And we're happy to give you updates. Sometimes we don't just send out periodic updates randomly, but we're happy to respond to any kind of questions that the clients have.
Yeah, of course. And I think that that's always just great to have in the background. If you have a question, ask. There's no harm in, just getting an update that might just be, hey, there's a lot of things going on in the background, but nothing negative, and we'll have a more detailed update for you in the upcoming weeks. But just to kind of ease everyone's mind with knowing that things are being processed.
Right. And another thing that's very important, again, is that since we are licensed in so many states, no matter where your surrogate is, we're most likely able to directly get the court documents filed by our firm. We don't have to go through another attorney who can slow down the process, or they can be super busy or unavailable. So that turnaround time for parental judgments, parental establishment in many states can be much more efficiently handled if you're licensed in that particular state.
Of course. And then on our screen here, I'm sure is, specifically for our international parents, had a couple of key points in regards to the most recent election and how that might impact, services or journeys or whatnot.
Yeah, so let me first of all approach this by this is not legal advice. I don't have a crystal ball, but these are my professional opinions in two areas that might impact the people who are listening. Post-election. So there's a new administration coming on board. Surrogacy itself. So there's two areas, surrogacy laws and IVF, medical access. So those are two very different subjects, but both have been in the news and both may be on the minds of the people who are listening. So surrogacy, I believe, remains very strong, and I think the United States will remain the absolute best and safest legal environment for surrogacy. I do not see that changing with any of the information I'm receiving from both medical and legal associations in the family law area. There has been only positive growth in states across the country for surrogacy during the past 20 years. So I alluded to the fact that when I was going through this with our oldest kid 20 plus years ago, there were no laws. There was zero laws. Now there are 20 states that have passed laws that expressly authorize surrogacy, make surrogacy contracts enforceable, and allow parentage judgments. So surrogacy is governed by state laws. So each state has their own laws. So again, 20 states have statute, approximately 20 states have statute. The other states, surrogacy is very active. Courts are enforcing those contracts and are issuing parentage judgments. There's only a couple of states, so about approximately 48 states, surrogacy is very strong. I do not anticipate, and many of the states that have recently passed surrogacy laws legalizing surrogacy have been in conservative red states, Idaho and other places. So it's not just a red-blue issue. I think both Republicans and Democrats have not come out with any kind of movement, if you will, to regulate surrogacy in a negative way. So I see surrogacy as remaining strong, and I don't anticipate any significant changes. If one state, for example, does change, if the legislators in one in particular state, and I don't know of any state, but if there is talk about it, we would know. We would know, and of course, alert all of our agency clients that that state may be thinking about doing something. In the past, none of the states have actually moved forward with any legislation that was in any way negatively impact surrogacy. And again, quite the opposite. They've passed legislation legalizing surrogacy and recognizing the enforceability of surrogacy contracts. So on that front, I personally believe there's nothing to worry about, and surrogacy laws will be stay in place, and if not, get stronger. IVF. So that's a whole IVF is a different issue. So IVF and access to fertility clinics. So IVF, as you know, has very broad appeal across the country. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Both Republican and Democratic politicians have come out and publicly announced support for IVF. There was a Alabama court case some last year, which impacted IVF, but immediately the Alabama legislators sort of overruled that, if you will, and made IVF legal. So I don't see on a state basis any state court decision negatively impacting IVF. Now, if there should be a state that does negatively impact IVF, then that would impact IVF clinics in that particular state only, not across the country, unless the U.S. Supreme Court did something. And I find that highly unlikely. But if there was one state that did impact a clinic, then first of all, as Kimberly knows, the transportation of embryos is very easy and very safe nowadays. So one can always you can always move your embryos into another state's clinic, for one. If, let's say, and I find this very unlikely and improbable, but if there should be some sort of national impact on IVF clinics and you're worried about your embryos, you can always transfer them to Mexico or Canada. So we know, I've spoken to clinics directly in Canada and Mexico. They will accept embryos created in the United States, and they're perfectly reputable. And many international clients have used Mexican and Canadian clinics in the past. So again, I don't see this happening, but just want to let you know the sort of what ifs, in case you're worried about your embryo storage.
I'm sure that that's, as you said, not likely to be needed, but great to know that there is resources where in the case it would be something more of a national change in law, that there are, alternatives where things can be sent to and still kind of managed appropriately and accordingly with the correct assistance to verify reputable locations to be sending, very sensitive things like tissue.
Right. And ACRC would have their pulse on this as well, but we're a resource as well to ACRC. So in concert, we can work to make sure that if we hear anything about IVF clinics in a particular area or jurisdiction, I mean, we will be up on it. You can call us up, contact us, contact ACRC, and we can certainly, give you some options of what's available. But I think bottom line is, I think your embryos will be safe somewhere, so you don't have to worry about losing them.
Thank you so much for that. And I did want to open up the floor if anyone attending today did have any more specific questions for Will or myself. Our chat is available as well to drop a question in there. Otherwise, if you would like to maybe privately message us at ACRC, we'd be very happy to connect you with Will and IRLG, his law firm, if it's something that is needed. Will, thank you so much for joining us today and for your expertise on the field of fertility and donation with intended parents. Was there anything you wanted to add before we kind of stepped away?
Oh, I see a question. Should I on a chat?
Oh, yes. What would the extra cost of transferring embryos to Canada or Mexico be? Not sure if you have some insight on kind of general pricing for that.
I personally visited a very reputable fertility clinic in Punta Mita, and their standards are excellent, and great IVF doctors there. And they're getting me the cost of storage, but I can tell you that the costs in Mexico are usually a third of what they are in the US. So I think shipment and storage would be, far less than what you would find in transporting them in the US. So it would be
Great. Thank you for that. And again, I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. If there are any questions, we will be available for just a couple more minutes. So if you, do not be shy. If you have any questions for Will or myself, you can go ahead and drop them in the chat. Thank you so much, ma'am. And if you go ahead and scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen there, you can also go ahead and enter for the additional $1,000 credit with us here at ACRC. And we will be having Will here pick a winner for us in just a few minutes. But other than that, Will, thank you so much. Was there anything that you wanted to add on?
No, thanks, Kimberly. You're a great moderator.
Oh, great. Besides the little technical difficulty, excuse me for the, I kind of jumped on the slides there for you a little bit in the beginning. Alrighty, let me see if, Oh, I did also want to go ahead and have our contact information here on the screen for you, and we are able to provide contact information directly for Will and IRLG as well, if that's anything that anyone is interested in. We have our phone number here. We do have services in Seattle, Irvine, Japan as well. So if anybody was interested in something like an in-person consultation, we do offer those in office. If you visit our website there, www.acrcglobal.com, you can see a full list of our office locations. And then let me go ahead and get you these, excuse me, for just a few minutes. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and send you a direct message with our registers, and you can go ahead and just choose the best one for you. That will be our winner for today. Alrighty, if you want to take a look there and pick out our lucky winner, you can just shout out the number.
Oh, okay. 301236.
All right, so our intended parent with the number 301236, you are our winner for an additional $1,000 credit with ACRC. Congratulations. We will go ahead and send you the email directly with the details, and we will contact you separately to go ahead and discuss the additional credit and arranging a consultation with us. Other than that, thank you so much, everyone who joined us today, and for your questions. Will, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate your expertise.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you. Have a nice day, everyone.